at one time I thought about doing something like that. You know, I probably could have gone and worked for Frame, but after I got sick, I could care less. And then at the end, I was so angry with the whole agency that I just didn't want to. Smile. This is as good as it gets, gentlemen.
Hey, here we go. We live?
Yep.
Here we are. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Fred and I are here behind the scope. I want to tell you that we have 200,000 subscribers, so thank you very much for all you're doing out there for us. And you can see pretty soon behind us that we will have the entire nation's air traffic system up and flying on the courtesy of FlightAware. Right, Fred?
That's right. We want to see what's going on all over that country, especially what's going on in Arizona. People have to realize when there's some kind of an event, if it's sporting or a concert, even the smaller cities, there are a lot of airplanes that want to get there. So we have to be aware of it. And something like today's event, you've got people from all over the country and even some from all over the world coming in to go to this function.
That's what Fred is talking about is the Charlie Kirk memorial that's happening out there in Arizona. Okay, so you can imagine all of the delayed programs that are in place so that the entire facility out there doesn't get swamped. Right, Fred?
Yeah, yeah. As much as that controller's up in the tower, and you have an extra 30, 40, 50 airplanes show up that want to land, they need to be spaced out and worked in. And it puts a real heavy workload on the controllers that are there. And planning ahead, at times with larger programs like the Super Bowl, you actually set up programs where you set up the times and airplanes will sit on the tarmac waiting to take off to be at that airport at that specific time. Otherwise, if they all take off at the same time, you're gonna have quite the group getting there and it's too much to handle. So if any of you folks think you wanna be an air traffic controller, this is the challenge. You can, cancel that program and go do it. Bob,
Yeah.
what do you?
First, I want to say I see Jack is out there. Thank you very much for tuning in, Jack. He's already using our chat line. There you go. I got you. Hi, Jack. Anybody else out there? There's a little chat box in the, should be in the lower right-hand corner of your video. You can send us questions, and I will do my best, or Fred will do his best to answer, either by typing it in or by talking out loud, and providing you the answer. So today we have a special guest I work with, and Fred here has worked with at Houston Center. He's been a controller, he's been a supervisor, he's been an operations manager, he's been with the FAAMA Managing Association, and I'd like to introduce Steve Stooksberry, good friend and fellow FAAer.
Greetings. I feel like a weatherman here. Got a occluded front coming this way, so. But piggybacking on what Fred and Bob were talking about there, you know, when I first came on board, I was at Atlanta Center, and just seeing what happened there during the Masters was pretty interesting. The programs, like Fred said, where you had a what's it called again? The
Major event.
no, not that, but the
delay program?
yeah, the delay programs that they put in place for that. But one of the more interesting things is the thing he kind of went on there was at College Station during a football season, where everybody that has a jet in the state of Texas and is an Aggie fan wants to depart and get into College Station at the same time.
She says
So that's pretty interesting, and particularly back in the day when the en route world, or we had to control it all the way to the ground, towards the tower there. So now it's under the approach control auspices, so it's a little different, but just interesting. A lot of airplanes, they want to be in one place at one time. So.
Do you have any questions about those delay programs, or what things they've seen when there's a major event around the country? Any comments? No comments. All right. So in that event, we will talk about Steve's time in the air traffic business, and when he first started out, what he remembers is
much better.
as a young trainee when he had hair,
When I had hair, yes.
and his progression up.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky in that, you know, I felt like I had a good trainer that stayed with me all the way through all my training phases, through the D side and the R side training. And
See, look at the
unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but you know, he passed a few years ago. But he was a very good instructor. I know that there would be times where I would ask a question, but he'd always say, "Well, you need to go look it up." And I thought that was key. In other words, I'm not piggybacking on anything he had, but I had to go and learn for myself. I thought that worked well for me. And then as I went up longer into my career, I went into traffic management, and I had a good trainer up there as well, and that was George Dick, who trained me in traffic management, and he was wonderful, and I always thought the world of George. He was a great controller, and I always wanted to impress him when I worked with him. So, and then, you know, I just kind of fell into different things through the years, and I mentioned FAAMA, and I was in that a little bit, but really I was SUPCOM, which was a supervisors committee, which was a group of supervisors from around the country, and I ended up being the national en route chair for that, and did that for a few years, and then I worked into upper management, worked a time at headquarters, and I was the acting airspace manager or procedure manager for oceanic and offshore operations, and I like to kid people and said, well, for a while there I controlled 2/3 of the planet, so of course that's in jest, of course, but really it was a a very strong staff that I had at Washington D.C. that did the work, and I was just there to kind of guide them. Because really I didn't have a lot of oceanic and offshore background, but I did have some airspace background.
Yeah, Steve has definitely been around in the FAA. He's made a lot of pluses for the managers in the FAA supervisors, always coming back with win-wins for us, making sure that we got the proper training and kind of looking at programs prior to them being edicted down to us. Because as a supervisor, as you know, if you were a supervisor, you're kind of like you're like a squirrel in a room full of rocking chairs down there. You're trying to watch the operation, you're filling out the schedule, you got to go in the back, you got to take care of paperwork. There's somebody that needs an evaluation, there's a performance report. It's like everything kind of is connected to that one position. And if that were to stop, you know, the operation, I wouldn't say that it would stop, but I would say that you would notice it when you're flying, because you lose your supervisor, or even if you can't put somebody in charge, the overall outcome is reduced traffic into those sectors. Okay.
A point to bring up, as much as some of the airports around the country, Steve mentioned the oceanic area. In the Gulf of Mexico, there's probably over 5,000 rigs, and those rigs have to be considered like individual airports, with traffic coming into them, going out of them, and if you have any kind of a weather event, that doubles the load, because those helicopters have to get into those rigs, take the personnel off, get off the rig, while others are coming around and the weather's moving in on them. So it gets very eventful for weather situations. Steve, you remember things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Until very recently, before the advent of ADS-B, it was non-radar out in the Gulf of Mexico, and those were real controllers, as we say, because they were having to work off strips and do times. Pretty interesting stuff. I remember working in traffic management and trying to figure out how many airplanes we're going to send through those sectors on the weekends, particularly because of the traffic going back and forth to Mexico, et cetera. It was, you had to do all your calculations, your gazetas, as I call them. And I know that I used to go down and talk to the supervisors in Lake Charles and basically say, you know, this is what it looks like to me. And then I remember Ray Lemons, who was a manager, a supervisor down in Lake Charles one day, he said, well, what'd you do? You just throw some bones and feathers in the cup and throw them on the table and figure out what the miles and trail was going to be. And I said, well, that was pretty much it. So, but yeah, they did a great job in the oceanic area in Houston Center, and I know they do it all over the country, and during the oceanics or offshore areas.
I'm surprised you didn't tell Ray about the bottle we spit up there.
No, I didn't want to get too much information to it.
Oh, well, he would have had more trust in that. I know that there was another supervisor who go unmentioned that I knew that if I needed to implement a plan for traffic management, I would have to come up with a complete opposite plan so that I can get him to tell me what the plan was that I was trying to develop. And it worked every time. It was kind of like, oh, it was child psychology, but it was very effective. You just had to know the people that you were dealing with. So
maybe we should explain to our listeners what ADS-B is.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Fred.
Well, I wasn't an oceanic guy, Steve.
Our oceanic specialist, ADS-B, you got it.
Well, now
what do you remember?
You're asking, again, like I said, when I was at headquarters, I depended on my staff. So really, it wouldn't be good for me to talk about it, even though it's, I don't know. I mean, that's really, I can't really get into the great details of it, how it works. I just know that with ADS-B, they have the ability to see the aircraft in the Gulf of Mexico now, that they did not have before. And I was lucky enough to work on it and begin just on the very fringes of it. The yeoman's work was done by the staff specialists at ICAO, with the FAA, worked with the folks down in Mexico a lot. The people at Houston Center, they're the ones that implemented or came up with a lot of these ideas that worked. And, you know, it would not be I could not give it justice to tell you what it is, other than it's the ability to see airplanes in the Gulf of Mexico that we could not see before. How that,
Major
the
reduction.
machinations of making that work, I have no earthly clue.
So it's a major reduction in separation standards in the Gulf of
Absolutely,
Mexico, which
absolutely.
provides a lot more efficiency.
Yes.
And somewhat security sensitive.
Yeah. So another topic I want to bring up, I don't know if everybody remembers, I'm sure you do, about the door coming off the Boeing. Right now, the FAA has finally come out and they proposed a $3.1 million of fines against Boeing Aircraft Company. That was for that incident, and another incident where one individual was actually approving the MAX 737, even though they knew that there was still some issues with it. So I don't know, that to me seems like a very egregious offense, and that individual should be held accountable to the utmost highest standards of the law. I've always had great faith in Boeing, and I would prefer to ride in a Boeing aircraft rather than any other aircraft. But after these events have been unveiled, I have my questions about when I get on an aircraft. You know, which one am I getting on? Where am I riding? I actually look at the seat. I actually look at the evacuation chart. I watch the lighting on the floor. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. But I would appreciate to get back into that trust environment that I've always had just getting on the aircraft. So, Boeing has 30 days since receiving the fine to respond to the agency's fine, and we'll see what they come up with. But I do believe that $3.1 million is a good chunk of change, and that ought to give them a wake-up call to pay more attention to the work that the people are doing out there. Because some of the things that I've read, just sloppy work habits, you know. Similar to the jet link that went down that Jack Oberfield talked about. They had that boot that was on the back of the aircraft. They didn't put the screws back in that night. They just wanted to put it on so the wing didn't get wet. And, the next morning, somebody signed off because they saw the boot there rather than check to see if all the screws were in. And what happened? We lost 13, 14 people and good aircraft. So, and we have a controller out there that had to be involved in all that. Several controllers that had to be involved in all that. So.
Maybe we should address the problems in Fort Worth
Oh yeah.
this week.
Yeah, this weekend we had like 300 flights canceled up at DFW and Fort Worth because the tower and the TRACON couldn't communicate. They actually had to have aircraft, the pilots, relaying information from the tower through pilot down to the TRACON and back. So there was a line cut. Where's the redundancy? How did that happen? How come these services aren't backed up with at least a double or triple redundancy? One line cut is a possibility. You know, somebody digging in their backyard, they're not calling to find out where they could dig, they cut that line. So more to follow on that. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping that we have better people out there that will figure this out and make sure that there is at least a triple redundancy in these air traffic pieces of equipment. The flying public relies on them. The controllers are relying on them to work 100%. And if they don't work, they're relying on to have a backup that they can switch to immediately and be able to continue to provide that safety service. So you can see behind us right now what's going on in the area around Arizona. All those people flying into the Charlie Kirk Memorial. And I just saw that there was an alert that there was a guy out there with a gun that gets found. Imagine that. You know, another kook, another person that just doesn't get it, just doesn't want to get along. Another adult that's not adulting, learning to understand how you can disagree and still be friends. I mean, if you cannot dissent, if you cannot have a different opinion, how do you change somebody's mind? You kill them? No, that is not the way to do it. This is ridiculous. It's out of hand. You know, that's all I'm going to say about that. So, anyway, Fred, you got anything else?
Oh, I wanted to bring up a little not known subject, but something called the X-37B, which is our latest space plane and something that's being managed by the U.S. Space Force. And this thing has flown quite a few times already and giving us huge knowledge in ways of manufacturing defensive equipment that can go higher and faster. They won't detail the speed that this thing has flown, but we're looking at hypersonic speeds, and this is what it looks like if you can see it. Other countries,
Can we get it on this?
other countries
Which, cameras? Oh, yeah.
have already determined and proven that they have equipment that no more speed of sound, no more sonic boom. These are hypersonic, 4, 5, 6 times the speed of sound that equipment can travel through the skies. And it's something that our children are going to hear more and more about. So the X-37B is one of the first prototypes of that. If you remember the old X-15s, well, I mean, we can go way back to the start of breaking the sound barrier with the X-1 and Chuck Yeager. And little sideline, Chuck Yeager had a broken arm when he got in that airplane. But the X-1 up to the X-15, and that vehicle gave us the information that allowed us to make the SR-71s. And now we're up to the X-37Bs. I don't know what the B is for, but I don't know what's been between the X-15 and this X-37, but I'm sure there's a lot of experimental aircraft that are up there.
All the lifting wing experiments,
Yeah.
the heat shields. You know, I have a picture on the YouTube channel. If you look, that picture at the top is an X-15. I was just back from Washington, went to the Aviation Museum. I took a lot of those photographs. And there's actually on one of my posts, I think I put 4 or 5 of the aircraft in there. So on the top of the page, you'll see the X-15 hanging in the Smithsonian Aviation Museum. It's a pretty good shot. I do say so myself. So, anybody out there have any? I see Jack. You said you were fortunate to fly from Lafayette offshore rig to with the Southwest Regional Director. Very nice. The pilot shot an airborne radar approach to the rig, and B is for beautiful. Oh, there's your answer, Fred. So. Any other questions out there?
I'm beautiful?
Yeah,
or
no.
oh.
B is for beautiful. You asked what the B was for. So, yeah. How do you like this format? How do you like the way we're set up? We've come a long way since our first podcast. I know we've worked very hard on the sound. We worked very hard on the quality of the picture, on our lighting, on our green screen. So hopefully it's coming out to be to your liking. Yeah. Any B is for beautiful. All right. Well, anything else out there in the aviation industry? Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for the 200,000 subscribers that we have. Please, when you watch the shows, please give a thumbs up so that we get a count on that goes for our hours. And let it play through all the way to the end, please, because it'll definitely increase the hours toward monetization. We're still not there. We're about a quarter of the way to monetization. At the rate that we're climbing for subscribers, I'm estimating by August of next year, we will be at 1 million. So the end of next month, we should be at 250,000 because we just hit 200,000. And next month's end should be 250,000. That's Rob math. I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Usually pretty close to being correct. So.
Also remember that we do have our booklets on air traffic control, everything you ever wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
And then we have our coffee cups.
We now have, here's our Huckster moment. We now have our coffee cups. Look at that. Behind the Scope LLC. So enjoy a nice, fresh cup of coffee in the morning with your Behind the Scope coffee cup. And if you order one of these, we can also, for an additional price, back here, put your name, where you worked at, any kind of personalization that you'd like on the bottom of it. And then for our our newest member to the group are our Behind the Scope luggage tags. Imagine sporting this around at the airport. Behind the Scope LLC with your name on the bottom of it, or whatever you would like your bag to go to should you lose it. And then our number one item here, look at that. Behind the Scope LLC. Now this t-shirt comes in black and it will come also in white. Okay? All sizes, small, all the way up to 3X. So make sure you get your orders in right away so that we can...
Also, baseball hats.
What's that?
Baseball hats.
Well, we're working on it. We are trying to make baseball hats in black and in white, but I'm having a little problem with the machine not making a crease in our logo. You don't want a creased logo now, do we? And I see Jack is saying actually the X-37A was when NASA had it, and then when we use USAF, took over because it became the X-37B, as in beautiful. Very good, Jack. Thank you for that update. So, Steve, thank you for coming on our show. Really appreciate you coming out here and all the things that you've done in the past. Anything you want to add to our people out there? You want to say anything? Anything you want to mention? Anything about the Charlie Kirk thing going on?
Well, you know, it's unfortunate that we've got to a point in our country where we can't disagree without falling into some violent act, and it's very disappointing. And you know, and we need somewhere, some way to start a dialogue for people to talk to one another. And I think that he was trying to do that, and unfortunately, he's lost his life for doing so. So that's kind of a frightening time in this country, and hopefully we can do better in the future. Maybe we'll learn from this. But as far as the memorial service today, I know the folks out in Albuquerque Center are doing a lot of work getting those airplanes in. I had the opportunity to work at Albuquerque for a year, and they do great work out there. Some of the fundamental, I always said that fundamentally sound controllers in the system were at Albuquerque Center. So, and I stand by that. They do a really, really good job out there. So, and that's pretty much all I've got. So.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. I was going to try to zoom in on Arizona, but I fully agree with you on your sentiments on the Charlie Kirk problem. You know, you could go back to when we stopped teaching tolerance of words, when people would get triggered by a word rather than, okay, blow it off, it doesn't mean anything in 100 years, it's not going to matter.
Right.
When we started to kowtow to them by saying, oh, you can't say that word, rather than, you know, you need to grow up and be able to accept that. When you can't say words like bitch or, I don't know, TP or just something that has some kind of a cultural inference. That's ridiculous. That's totally ridiculous. And then they started with the costumes. You can't dress up as an Indian if you're a Caucasian. You know, copying somebody is the highest form of flattery. I mean, why don't we think of it in those terms rather than you're stealing somebody's culture? Where did that come from? Who even thought of that stupidity? I don't get the mindset on that. And then the compartmentalization of all the races. You're black, you're white, you're Asian. We're all in the human race, people. We all bleed. We all got to eat. We need shelter. We need warmth. You know, these are the things that we should be looking at, providing each other, rather than trying to separate us and say that this one is not equal to that one. Well, newsflash, we're all equal. You tell me something that you can't do that I can do, and I can do that you can't do legally, okay? Everything out there is for your benefit. So if you're blaming it on because of your race, your color, your religion, you better step back and take a good look at it, because that's not what it is. And that's as political as I'm going to get. Sorry, Fred, I always tell you not to get political, but I am just a little bit peeved about the childish attitudes of this country. The adults have become children. So.
Sounded good to me.
Oh,
Didn't sound political at all.
Okay. Well, look, thank you all again. Subscribing, share the channel. We love having you. We would love to have you guys post on our page and let us know what you'd like to see different or what you'd like us to change. Thank you very, very much from Fred and I. And Steve, once again, thank you for coming out here and enjoying the show with us.
You're welcome.
I look forward to having you another time. And if you're lucky, you might get out the door with one of our cups.
There you go.
All right. So from Fred and I, y'all be safe, okay? Learn to love one another.